Does it ever feel like when you're talking to somebody and there's some disagreement or conflict between the two of you, that it feels like you're speaking a different language? Now, I won't tell you which kid it is, but one of my kids, one of the boys, but I won't tell you which kid it is, has been having a rough couple weeks. A lot of changes in life right now. You know, young man going to kindergarten, growing up, pushing against authority. And I sometimes wonder, are we even talking the same language right now? Finish your homework. Why? You know, sometimes you hear stuff like that. Finish your homework. Get your work done. Why? Well, because I don't want you to live under a bridge in Portland, Oregon when you grow up. Don't hit your sisters. Why? You know, am I speaking a different language to you? Are we even on the same page right now? And that reminded me of something that a friend of mine named Edwin Crozier said a couple years ago. He said in an article, "Sometimes as I'm having spiritual conversations with folks, we talk and talk and talk, then we argue and argue and argue, then we fuss and fuss and fuss, then we get exasperated, frustrated, and downright angry. Then I realize, wait a minute, we're talking in two different languages." Imagine for a moment that you're seeing two different people who are obviously agitated with each other. They are red-faced, gesticulating and yelling, but one is doing so in Mandarin and the other in Italian. What are these two going to accomplish? Well, pretty much nothing. Why? Because they can't even understand each other. This happened to me again recently. I shared something and someone got upset about it. We were going back and forth about it and I was totally flummoxed as to why what I was saying was so upsetting. My point made perfect sense to me. Then I realized the language he was hearing in was not the language I was speaking in. He goes on to say that there are really two perspectives when it comes to keeping the rules in our relationship with God. Now, for some people, studying the Bible and attending worship service and fleeing even the appearance of evil and avoiding vices in this world, for some people, that's not difficult. It's not hard, or at least in the sense that they don't see that as a gray area, but as a black and white. So the difference between those things is clear to some people. For other people, it's not. And as soon as you come in or chime in and say, you know, we need to be worshiping God and we need to be at worship services every time the doors are open, it's amazing how some people respond to that pretty negatively. But like Edwin Crozier says, and like we sometimes realize in raising our children, maybe it's just that we're speaking completely different languages here. So Edwin goes on to point out that there are two perspectives that tend to develop in how we respond to the content of the Bible and what the Bible asks of us, what the Bible expects of us. The first perspective is this, that some people see the Bible simply as a set of rules to help them obtain a reward, like following a roadmap or a set of directions. That the Bible has all these things in it. Some of it is about worship. Some of it is about study and prayer and other spiritual disciplines. Some of it is about do this and don't do these things. And as long as I do and don't do all of the right things, then at the end of the road, I will have made it to heaven and God will give me my reward. And that's one perspective. That's one response to the content of the Bible. But he goes on to say that the other response to the content of the Bible is this. Others see the rules, quote unquote, in the Bible as God's means of helping us build a relationship to Him. The rules are not meant then to keep us away from something, but to help us grow closer to God. The rules are meant to give us something, to help accomplish something in our lives. So let's see how these things play out. There are several scriptures that help us get a deeper understanding of what heaven actually is. Is heaven simply the 2 + 2 = 4 reward for doing all the right things and filling in the boxes and completing the list of required actions? Is that really what heaven is? Or does the Bible give us a better sense of what heaven is supposed to be? First, notice the way that Paul describes heaven in Philippians chapter 1 and verse 23. In Philippians 1, in this conversation that he's having about what do I choose? Do I stay in this life and keep working because it's more necessary for your sake? Or if I had the choice, hypothetically of course, to just go to heaven right now? He says, I'm hard-pressed from both directions. And of course, understand, Paul is not saying that he actually had that choice. He's not saying that in this instance, I'm actually choosing to either continue living or kill myself and go to heaven. That's not what he's talking about. He's simply saying, where is our desire? Where is our goal? Where is our heart right now? He's saying, I'm hard-pressed from both directions, having the desire to be with Christ, for that is very much better. For Paul, he puts heaven in terms of being with Christ. That's what Paul wants, is to be in the presence and company of his Savior. There's a lot of other things about heaven that Paul could have said, and there's a lot of things about heaven that we've invented mythologically or in our literature or in our comedy or in our art. There's a lot of things about heaven that Paul could have said that he doesn't say here. To Paul, going to heaven means going to be with Christ, to be in the presence of his Savior. To him, the eternal reward was not a possession or a place per se, but simply the presence of Christ. The apostle was looking forward to being with Jesus. Similarly, when faced with imminent death, the man crucified next to Jesus pleaded for mercy. And in response, Jesus said in Luke 23 and verse 43, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." Now, when Jesus talks about paradise, he's not saying today you're going to get paradise. Today you're just going to be in paradise. Jesus frames it again in terms of his presence. That's what he sees. Today, you won't just be in paradise. Today, you won't just be released from your suffering. Today, you're not just going to get a reward or a place or a possession. Today, you're going to be with me. You're going to be with me. Notice in the book of Revelation, the joy of the heavenly host, in particular, in Revelation chapters 4 and 5. Two of my favorite chapters in the book of Revelation, two of my favorite chapters in the whole Bible. Because what you have in Revelation 4 and 5 is this throne scene. And it's pretty impressive, to say the least. But everything that you see in this throne scene, from the sea of crystal-like glass to the emerald rainbow that surrounds the throne to the glory of the one sitting on it, everything about this throne scene draws your attention to the one on the throne and the Lamb standing as if slain in chapter 5. That's where all the focus is. You notice in Revelation 4 and 5 that host of people who surround it, the souls, the beasts, the disciples, all of those who surround the throne scene, you notice that they're not taking their iPhones out taking pictures of it. They're not there sightseeing. Nobody's like nudging each other going like, wow, I knew that the emerald rainbow was going to be great, but I didn't know it would be this great. They don't care about the scenery. They're not there doing heavenly sightseeing, getting postcards or going to the gift shop. You know what is really great about heaven? You know what is really great about this throne scene? Is the one on the throne and the Lamb standing as if slain. That's where all their attention is focused. That's what they care about. I know we talk about heaven having streets of gold, but those streets of gold lead to Christ. We talk about heaven having no night, but the reason why heaven has no night is because the sun provides all of the light. We talk about the image of heaven as this beautiful and luxurious and amazing place, but everything about that place is about God. Friends, when we get to heaven, it is not going to be a thing or a place or a possession or stuff or a house. When we get to heaven, we are going to be with God. And that is the ultimate reward. And if you're not convinced yet, consider what hell is going to be. Because heaven and hell are opposites. So whatever hell is, heaven must be the opposite. A great passage in 2 Thessalonians 1 and verse 9. Paul talks about eternal destruction in 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 9 as away from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of His power. Now again, there's a lot of things about hell that Paul could have said, and they would have been true. He could have talked about the lake of fire and brimstone. He could have talked about the weeping and gnashing of teeth. But for Paul, the worst part about hell is not the lake of fire, but being away from the presence of God. Think about that. The worst way to spend eternity would be to be away from the presence of God and His glory. The best way to spend eternity would be to be in His presence. Sin separates us from a relationship with God. Isaiah 59 and verse 2. Your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, and your sins have hidden His face from you so that He does not hear. Heaven has to be more than just a place or a thing or a possession. Heaven is about a relationship with God. As Edwin Crozier puts it in his article, the empty rule keeper tends to view salvation as basically just a trip to Disney heaven. Follow the directions, pay the fees, buy your $100 tickets, buy your $20 churros. All right, go to the gift shop. But think about it. That's what heaven is to the empty rule keeper. If all you care about is, I went to church all those years, and I did what I had to do, and I didn't smoke, and I didn't drink, and I never had an affair, I followed all the rules, now gimme, 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 gimme. Well, that's Disneyland, isn't it? You're the one who has to drive to Disneyland. You're the one who has to pay the fees to get in. You're the one who has to wear the comfortable shoes and walk around all day long getting blisters. You're the one paying for food. You're the one paying for souvenirs. You're the one waiting in line for the rides. Disneyland is your reward for all of your work. And again, for the empty rule keeper, that's all heaven is. It's just Disney heaven. I did what I was supposed to do. Now gimme, gimme, gimme. Let's go to Matthew chapter 19 and see an example of someone who had this exact mentality. And we're going to try and give him as much credit as we can, okay? Because it's not like the man was evil. No, the man wasn't wicked. Let's give him some credit, but let's notice his mentality here. In Matthew chapter 19, let's read about the rich young ruler here. Matthew 19, beginning in verse 16. And behold, one came to him and said, Teacher, what good things shall I do that I may obtain eternal life? We read a verse like that, and it is pregnant with so many false ideas. He's coming at heaven from the completely wrong direction. What good things should I do to obtain eternal life? Now, I'm going to ruin the ending for you, by the way. The ending of the whole gospel story, that is. The real question is not, what good things should I do to obtain eternal life? The real question is, what good thing did you do to grant me eternal life? Now, I don't want to judge him too harshly because he's coming at this situation from a particular perspective. And he's not coming at it from the perspective of somebody who's been studying the New Testament his whole life, okay? But let's read a little bit here. Now, Jesus plays along, okay? This question is all wrong. It's coming at it from the wrong side of things. And yet, I love Jesus plays along for a minute. Well, why are you asking me about what is good? There's only one who is good, but if you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments. And that's a true statement, by the way. If we don't keep the commandments, we will not enter into life. Now he said, which ones in verse 18? And Jesus said, you shall not commit murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And the young man said to him, all these things I have kept, what am I still lacking? I do give the man credit here for not being satisfied with the easy answer. It would have been very easy for him to just kind of take that and say, okay, well, I've done all those things, so I'm good, right? He's not satisfied with that, and he pushes. So Jesus said to him, if you wish to be complete, go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me. And of course we know in verse 22 that the young man went away grieved because he owned much property. It's hard for him, I suppose. His first mistake, obviously, is thinking in terms of obtaining salvation at all. His second mistake is that he even has to ask which ones when told to keep the commandments. That is an interesting question, isn't it? Jesus says, keep the commandments, and this man's immediate response is, well, which ones? Are there more important commandments than others? Maybe that's the attitude of the rule keeper today as well. As long as I go to church, right? Is that the really important one? If I go to church, that covers up everything I did the rest of the week, right? I can live however I want, Monday through Saturday, but then when I go to church, that gets the checkbox filled, doesn't it? That accomplishes what I should have been doing all week long in just one nice, tidy little hour and a half. That's what the empty rule keeper thinks. His mentality was one of earning something, which is no surprise, since he probably applied this kind of thinking to almost every other area of his life. After all, he's a rich young ruler. Those descriptions mean something, don't they? He's rich and he's young, which means that he has had a very short amount of time to very aggressively pursue wealth. He's a shark, he's a hard worker, he works fast. He's rich and he's young. So for him, everything that he has, he's worked for and he's done it quick. So why shouldn't heaven be the same way? Why shouldn't heaven be the same way? Hey, let's just wrap this whole heaven thing up right now, shall we? I just want to figure out, let's streamline it, okay? Let's come up with a good business model here. What are the most essential things that I need to do to go to heaven? Give it to me straight, Jesus. Don't complicate it. Don't give me anything esoteric. Don't give me something to think about. Let's just streamline it. You tell me just what exactly I need to do to go to heaven, and we'll take care of this right here and right there. He's a rich young ruler. This is his mentality. This is how he's always lived. So it's no surprise. But look again at verse 21. What exactly is the treasure in heaven that Jesus promises? Sell your possessions, give them to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven. And come follow me. I think that phrase, come follow me, is a clue about what the treasure of heaven really is. And it's what we've been talking about this whole time. The treasure of heaven is not a pile of gold. The treasure of heaven is not literally a mansion. The treasure of heaven is not literally walking barefoot on streets of gold. The treasure of heaven is to have a relationship with God. That's what the invitation is, isn't it? Go sell your possessions, give them to the poor, you'll have treasure in heaven, and let's start that treasure right now by having a relationship with one another. Come follow me. That's nothing short of a personal invitation to be a disciple of Jesus. And I think that's the invitation that he offers to all the rest of us as well. So I suppose the last question that we should ask is, why keep the rules at all? If heaven is just about having a relationship with God, and if empty rule keeping is never going to get you into heaven, do we even need to keep the rules? If one is even inclined to ask that question, I think first of all there's some serious soul searching that needs to be done. But that is exactly the mentality that gets us into so much trouble spiritually. Let's take an example, okay? Let's talk about Bible study, okay? Bible study. For some people, Bible study is a rule that has to be followed. I have to study the Bible. The elders are telling me to study the Bible. Ryan and Ellen are always telling me, study the Bible. And I can read in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, that I have a personal responsibility to study the Scriptures. So for some people, that's a rule that has to be kept. And if I keep that rule and study the Bible and know the Bible, and at the end of life I can answer a fill-in-the-blank questionnaire before I go into heaven to show my Bible trivia knowledge, then I'll go to heaven. And that's what it is to some people. But for others, the Bible is not about keeping a rule. For others, the Bible is about building a relationship with God. If I say the Bible says you must study, the Bible says you must study to show yourself approved. The Bible says you must be able to make a good defense of the gospel that you're standing up for. The Bible says you must know the Scriptures and know them well. On the one hand, someone might respond, well, that's just a rule that I have to do to go to heaven. On the other hand, somebody else might say, so you're telling me that if I study the Bible, I can grow closer in my relationship to God. Which mentality do you think is right? Which mentality do you think is more healthy? Conflict happens, though, when the two different viewpoints start talking to each other. That's this old Edmund Crozier speaking different languages, me trying to talk to my children, and they don't seem to understand at all what I'm trying to get across to them. I can sit here and say, I have to go to church. I have to go to every worship service. When the doors are open, I'm there, and I have to be there. And you might not have that same attitude. The difference comes because we're speaking different languages. Now, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything, but there is a mentality that says, I am going to be at the church building every single worship service, and I'm going to go to men's classes, I'm going to go to the ladies' classes, I'm going to go to every Bible study, I'm going to participate in prayer groups, I'm going to be at our work groups, I'm going to participate, and I'm going to visit and contact visitors and new converts, and I'm going to see people in the hospital, and I'm going to meet the shut-ins, and I'm going to do all of those things, because doing those things helps me grow closer to God. And there's another mentality that says, I'm going to do all those things and I'm going to keep the rules and I'm going to go to heaven because I did all the right things. One person gets it and another person doesn't. One person is looking for as many opportunities as possible to grow closer to God. The other person is looking for the fewest opportunities possible to skate by. What's the bare minimum? What's the bare minimum in keeping the rules and getting my reward? Because if I can get the reward by going to church just once a week, why go 3 times? If I can get the reward with the bare minimum, why put extra effort in? The Sermon on the Mount, I think, is the exact same way when you read in Matthew chapters 5 through 7. We kind of have this idea that the Sermon on the Mount is this beautiful, transcendent piece of literature, and it is, by the way. But do you realize that the Sermon on the Mount is chock full of rules? It's rules. Rule after rule after rule. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. It is full of rules about marriage and divorce, anger, revenge, prayer, charity, worry, stress, judgment. But if somebody reads the Sermon on the Mount and all they see are the rules, they've completely missed the point of it. They've missed the point of it. Let's be clear about something. God commands a great many things from us. They are commandments. Call them rules if you want to. Don't call them rules. I don't care. God commands us to do things. He expects us to do things. And if we fail to do those things, we will be punished for eternity. So let's be clear about that, okay? But am I obeying the rules in order to obtain salvation, or am I obeying the rules in order to build up my friendship with the Lord? What does John 15, verse 14 say? What is the connection that Jesus makes between the rules and himself? Does he say, if you do what I command you, I'll give you a reward? No, he says, if you do what I command you, you're my friends. If you do what I command you, you're my friends. Jesus is proving the point that we're trying to talk about in this lesson. Following the rules is about building a friendship with God. That's what he sees. Obedience is about friendship, not fear. It is about loving God so much that I will do whatever it takes to draw closer to him. I don't care what God asks me to do, if what he asks me to do brings me closer to him. Call them rules if you want to. But a deeper relationship with God is the end result, if that's what we're seeking, rather than just a superficial, fluffy Disney heaven. Now, if you're not a Christian here this morning, you really ought to be. You have an opportunity at this time to make things right with the Lord by obeying what he has said. Don't obey for the same reason that the rich young ruler did. Obey because you want to be God's friend. Obey because you want to be Jesus Christ's brother. Obey because you want to be the Father's son. Obey because you want to have an eternal relationship with your Creator, your Judge, and your Savior. Obey at this time. Please, whatever needs you might have, come forward as we stand and sing.